Bow down! Bow down! Bow down to Jesus' bidding!
Hello again, everybody. This video is going to be a short one, and it's a question that pops up every so often that today we're going to get to the bottom of. When does moral oral take place? Many people assume that because of its nostalgic Americana qualities, moral oral is meant to take place in the mid-20th century.
So my answer to that question, and everyone can have their own answer to this, no one has a gun to your head. Moral oral takes place in the Bush era, at the same time it was made. This video will go over some of the anachronistic happenings, peoples, and objects that signal the show taking place past the 50s or 70s, and later on specific markers that place it post 9/11.
Why, you could be Lee Harvey Oswald, and I still wouldn't bring you on that trip with me.
Lee Harvey Oswald assassinated JFK in 1963. Clay refers to him as a shooter, so it's in reference to the assassination. Richard Nixon was president from 1969 to 1974 and is infamous for the Watergate scandal. In Elemental Oral, he is depicted on the money from Orel's grandpa, which could imply it's an older mint. Roy Cohn was a lawyer, mentor to Donald Trump in the 1970s, and McCarthyist political operative. He was also a closeted homosexual who died of AIDS complications in 1986, lending some dark comedy to Moralton naming a blood bank after him in memoriam.
Clay's phone number, as depicted in the Blessed Union, is KL50129. Lettered area codes were used from the 1930s to the 1960s. KL would identify the area of Moralton where the Puppingtons live. In the 1960s, when phone companies began replacing lettered prefixes with fully numeric systems, various groups were founded in reaction to it and mounted campaigns against the dehumanization of the telephone systems. This is not unsimilar to the goings-on of Moralton, and one could imagine Miss Censordoll heading a campaign of the sort. Despite the antiquated numbering scheme, there appears to be no telephone operators in Moralton. The last telephone operator in the US was Susan Glines in 1983.
DNA testing is mentioned in a newspaper article in God's Chef. Carrie Mullis invented the polymerase chain reaction process in 1983, but using it for paternity testing was not widespread until the 1990s.
Blaberta has no qualms about breastfeeding Shapey or other children for that matter. From the 1930s to the 1960s, there was a significant decline in breastfeeding, so much so that by the 60s, new mothers had never seen another mother breastfeed her child. This was also paired with the rise of infant formula and baby food corporations.
The first woman-owned sex shop in the USA was opened in New York in 1974 by Del Williams, with the second in San Francisco in 1977. New York and San Francisco both had a very sex-positive culture at the time, and it would have taken at least a decade for sex shops to reach a town like Moralton. Buried Pleasures also carries adult films, which took off in the 1980s due to the proliferation of home video. Stephanie herself does not fit the profiles for lesbians of the 50s or the 70s. 50s lesbian culture was very centered on butch and femme dynamics, while 70s lesbian culture was more androgynous, heavily feminism-focused, and discouraged butch femme dynamics. Stephanie does fit the cultural profile for sex-positive lesbians from the mid-80s to the early 2000s, as seen in underground erotic publications such as On Our Backs.
Angela Puppington wasn't aware of the impact of alcohol on fetal development, which had not become well known or publicized by the Surgeon General until 1976. This was back before Clay was born, and it doesn't seem to be as common of an issue in Moralton at least 40 years after his birth.
Had the show continued, Orel would have gotten more into goth culture and Multiple Godgasm, a Christian death metal band. Christian death metal appeared in the 80s and 90s.
And last but not least, Sodomy Laws. Penetrative sex between men in and of itself does not appear to be criminalized in Moralton, first based on how Putty talks about it in his sermons, and second from the beginning of the Lost episode Abstinence. Instead of being jailed, the gay men who Orel brought into Moralton in one of his off-screen shenanigans are put on a bus and sent away to anywhere but here. Up until 2003, it was still illegal to practice anal sex in 14 states, including the 4 that border state of Soda, which would be Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. Post Lawrence versus Texas in 2003, anal sex was decriminalized across all states on the grounds of being an unconstitutional invasion of privacy.
The verdict is as follows. Moral Orel takes place in 2005. Why are they so fixated on retro old-timey culture? Well, they're just that conservative and regressive. Communities like this do exist in reality. Just look at the state of our government. Are there any other points you can think of? Let us know in the comments.
Burn in heaven! Burn in heaven! Burn in heaven! Burn! The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He restoreth my soul.